There are two things that Father was practically beating into my head when I went to work out. In fact, I couldn't even work out because Father was so insistent that I record this video that I had to take all of my workout equipment off and I had to devote myself to doing this video instead. Joshua, anybody who's read the Renewed Covenant or New Testament scriptures should probably recall the passage when one of Joshua's disciples came to him and said, "Master, we saw a man who was casting out demons in your name, and we told him to stop because he's not with us." And Joshua told them, he said, "Do not stop him, for he who is not against us is with us. He who performs a miracle in my name cannot in the very next moment curse me." Basically, Joshua forbade sectarianism. Sectarianism is essentially the process of schisms and divides forming within a religious body, most especially the assembly, what's considered today the Christian faith. Joshua was vehement on how important it was that the faith and the assemblies not become divided and not break off into individual groups. Now, of course, very shortly after him, people started to do that very thing. Nobody listened to him. And Joshua, even to drive the point home, later on he told a parable about how a house divided cannot stand against itself. Specifically, he said, if Satan casts out Satan, then how can he stand? His kingdom is divided. A divided kingdom cannot stand, or will not long stand. So even in his metaphorical parables, he even went on to further explain why that anything divided cannot stand. It will crumble and it will fall. Now, interestingly, over 2,000 years later, that's exactly what's happened to what's considered today the faith of Christianity. What the original teachings that Joshua promulgated to the people and that his disciples carried on in Yahweh's name. That's exactly what ended up happening to the faith that became Christianity out of that original pure Hebraic faith that Joshua and his disciples taught. The Renewed Covenant, the New Testament way. And now, when you look around in the whole wide world, the United States, European countries, pretty much anywhere you find Christianity, divides and sects are everywhere. I do mean everywhere. You'll find them on practically every corner. I know back where I live, there's about 3 or 4 churches within probably 10 minutes of me. All different sects, different denominations. And they all stand for and they teach and believe something a little bit differently. But I'm not so much here. Father doesn't want me really so much to talk about sectarianism, because I would go for a very long time talking about that. Specifically, it's people's inability. It is the so-called Christians' inability to gather around and to follow one particular truth. And there's only one truth. Father has got one truth. That's it. Joshua taught one truth. And if you want to take all the truth that was taught and summarize it down into one, it was basically this. If you take everything Joshua ever talked about, and you take all of Torah from the first covenant, the Old Testament, basically the truth of Father is one thing. He is the one only Elohim, and you love him and you devote yourself to him with all you have. He hates idolatry and paganism of any sort and putting anything whatsoever before him. There's 2 things. And when you become his child, you are not to hold yourself as being superior or being better than anybody else inherently just because you've got faith. So you choose him first and foremost before anything and everything else. You abstain from all forms of idolatry and paganism. And number 2, you keep yourself humble and modest so that you can give and represent not just kindness, but everything Father embodies to everybody you meet so you can represent him properly. It's really what Torah and everything Yahshua taught in their new covenant, at the base, that's what it is. Because when Yahshua basically said, look, the 10 Commandments, when he said, you'll follow them if you follow these two, and he said, Hear, O Yisrael, Yah, your Elohim, Yah is one, and you will love him with all you are. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as you love yourself. That's exactly what Yahshua was saying, very simply. Love Father with all you are. Make him first. You will abstain from any form of idolatry. You will never fall prey to it. You'll get every idol out of your life. And if you love your neighbor as you love yourself, you're not going to go out here and you're not going to be arrogant or conceited, mistrustful, nasty to other people. You're going to properly represent Father. So that's the basis of the faith. But here's where it all goes off the rails. Christians today, everybody who calls themselves a Christian in the religion as it's known, the biggest problem is that Christians are some of the most, and I'm just going to say it like it is. I'm not saying this to be offensive or mean. I'm just saying this as it is. And I could use much more offensive words than this. Christians are some of the most weak-willed, weak-minded, gullible people you're ever going to meet right now. Because almost any Christian I have met, the one thing so many of them have in common is they have itching ears. What I mean by itching ears is they are so eager to listen to anybody who preaches and says anything. Now, you got people that are dedicated to their church. They're dedicated to the church they go to, and they may not go to other churches, but today, online influencers, religious ministers, all these people online on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all these people who are religious Christian influencers who go on and they all have something to say, are these TV evangelists. So many Christians, even if they devote themselves to one particular church, one particular denomination, because they identify as Pentecostal, Brethren, Lutheran, Methodist, whatever, they will still open their ears and they will listen to what other people has to say and teach. Other preachers, other pastors, other prophets, or whatever they want to call themselves, influencers. They will listen to them. They will hear what they have to say. And that's a very common theme with so many people part of the Christian body, is they are eager to hear what anybody in the faith has to teach. Now, here's the problem with that, is that of all of this huge body of religious influencers, teachers, prophets, preachers, pastors, everybody who's out here teaching and has something to say, they all have different views, different beliefs, and disagree on things. They may have a few things they agree on, but when you take in the general consensus of the whole retinue of what these people believe in, they have glaring differences. So here's what most of the, really all of the Christian body has done, is it's taken beliefs, it's taken theology from several different branches and groups of Christianity, from different denominations, different groups, and some people don't even realize it. They've even taken bits and pieces from Catholicism, from Greek Orthodoxy, Eastern Orthodoxy, the Eastern churches. They've taken bits and pieces and smatterings of different theological beliefs from the entire Christian body, and they've amalgamated it together into largely the doctrine that most people believe in. And most Christians today, they each have their own pet theologies they believe in and follow. You can have one church of people, there's 100 people that attend that church, and all 100 of those people are probably going to have their own pet, meaning their own unique theological ideas and beliefs about the faith and how they practice their faith. There's no uniformity. There's no one singular structure of belief. It's varied. It's as varied as political opinions are, as ideological beliefs are, as philosophy is. And everybody thinks it's okay to do that. And you know what's really interesting about that is that's become the norm for modern Christians, especially in the wake of the online age. YouTube, all these people, whether they're so-called ordained preachers and ministers, just somebody that sits down in front of a camera and starts to talk. Yeah, I know I talk in front of a camera. If you want to lump me in with them, go right ahead. I don't personally care. But making a point, everybody who now sits in front of a camera and teaches something theologically, it's become the Christian norm to just listen to all these people. Online, turn on your TV and listen to TV evangelists. You go from 1 hour, one block to the next, this evangelist to that evangelist. You watch this video from this preacher, this pastor, then you watch this one from... You know, I think it's amazing, really. And it's a huge contradiction of Scripture itself that so many Christians seem to be blindly ignorant of, like a lot of the doctrines they believe in that literally Scriptures themselves tell you not to do. It's actually, and I've got it here, I want to tell you exactly where it's at so you can, proofread me and you don't have to just take my word for it. But in Timotheus Bet, which is Hebrew for 2 Timothy, chapter 4, I'm just going to read verses 1 through 4. It says, I charge you, and I'm using proper Hebraic sacred names and terms and titles. You'll read it differently on the Bible Gateway site, but I'm using proper Hebraic terms. I charge you, therefore, before Elohim and the Master, Yahshua HaMashiach, who will judge the living and the dead at his appearing in his kingdom. Preach the word, be ready in season and out of season. Convince, rebuke, exhort with all long-suffering and teaching. For the time will come when they, and the they in this refers to believers, the crowds that are preached to, those who today will call themselves Christians, when they will not endure sound doctrine, but according to their own desires, because they have itching ears, they will heap up for themselves teachers, and they will turn their ears away from the truth and be turned aside to fables. Basically, things aren't true. Lies, fantasies, untruths. But you be watchful in all things. In your afflictions, do the work of an evangelist, basically meaning somebody who goes out and stands for the Besoda, for the gospel, teaches the word. Fulfill your ministry. Now, this was Shaul, Paul, writing this letter to his apprentice, Timotheus or Timothy, for a little bit of historical context, scriptural historical. But essentially, Shaul, Paul, who most Christians love very, very much, he was literally telling people that later, in times to come down the road, believers would become the type of people where they would literally be turned aside. They wouldn't want to hear the truth, the actual single uniform truth of the faith of Father, which I've laid out. The most important things: choosing him above all else, putting him before all else, abstaining from every form of idolatry, testing and approving anything and everything to knowing what's idolatrous and turning from it, and again, loving your neighbor like you love yourself. So being a good representative of Father, not being mistrustful, nasty, bitter toward other people, endeavoring to be a good representative in all things and letting the light and the presence of your Father in you come out. So the single uniform truth of Father, which there's only one way, one truth, and that's it. That there would be people, believers, in later times who would turn away from that truth. And instead, they would have itching ears, meaning they would have ears that would be attuned to wanting to listen to other things, other sayings, and they would heap up for themselves teachers, meaning this person and this person and this person and this person, anybody standing around teaching and saying, hey, listen to me, I've got something to say, listen to me, I know what to teach, I know the way, that there will come a time that believers would literally, one believer would heap up for themselves multiple different teachers, all claiming they knew the truth, and they would listen to them, and they would be turned aside from the truth. They wouldn't want to hear the truth. They want to listen to all these other teachers teaching fables, lies, things that aren't true, things that are silly, things that don't matter. That is what the believers would want to hear, and they turn away from the truth. Now, do you not find it to be odd that now, in the current time we live in, there are churches on every street corner of all kinds of different denominations. You go into 3 different churches within a 2-mile radius, and you're going to hear a different form of the truth in all 3 of those churches. You go online. We live in an age now where everybody is a teacher, everybody's a preacher, everybody is something. Even though in Yaakov and James, it's very, very, very clearly warned to believers. Yaakov, James himself says, let not many of us be teachers, for we will be held to a stricter condemnation. But now everybody wants to be a teacher. There's no sense of responsibility anymore. Anybody thinks they can do it. Now, with online world, YouTube, everything else, now there are hundreds, thousands of teachers in the Christian faith, the Christian religion, all over the place. And normal standard Christians all over the place, they're literally falling over themselves to listen to these people. You'll turn on the TV and Christians will sit and they'll watch 3 or 4 different evangelists. That is heaping up teachers. If you can't see the writing on the wall for yourself, let me point it out to you in glaring red spray paint on the wall. Clear as day. That is exactly what Paul warned of. And people don't even see it. Christians don't even see it. They're listening to all these different teachers, all these different influencers online, on YouTube. They're watching all these TV evangelists. They'll go from church to church to church, if they church hop, whatever. And they're heaping up for themselves teachers. And whatever they hear that's sensational, that they like, that makes them feel good, they'll listen to that guy. And then if he says something later they don't like, they'll drop him and listen to somebody else. Or they'll just hodgepodge and pick different ministers, different teachers online or on TV, and they'll listen to these different guys because I like what this guy says, I like this, like that. They start picking apart different things to listen to, and anything else that teacher says, that preacher, whatever, I don't like that, I don't agree with that, but I like this. And they'll do the same thing to maybe 5, 8, 10 different people. That's exactly what Paul said not to do. It's what he warned against. And most of the Christian body loves him. And he literally said, don't do that. It's a bad idea. Don't do it. Not only that, but literally in the same manner, when the people of Israel were committing idolatry during one of the many times that they did so. Sorry, it was super cold. I had to come in. We're almost done. This is quick, short, to the point. I'm not going to drone on. Don't need to. But when the people of Israel were committing paganism again, as recorded in Melachim and Kings, specifically in Melachim Aleph, or 1 Kings, chapter 18, verse 21, when Elijah was trying to pull the people away from Baal, the abomination of the pagan peoples around them, and get them back to worshiping Father again. When he took them up on Mount Carmel, go read the story for yourself. It's pretty cool, pretty awesome story. And he was trying to turn them from paganism, and he literally told the people of Israel, Elijah, he said, Elijah stood up in front of all the people and asked them, how long will you try to have it both ways? If Yahweh is Elohim, follow him. If Baal is Elohim, follow him. The people didn't say a word. Now, it's funny, in their own way, Christians today are no different, because everybody's got someone they listen to. They heaped up for themselves teachers, all kinds of different opinions, all kinds of different beliefs. Now, literally, it's no different. Now, the people, the Christian religion, Christians, what they call themselves, limp between 2 opinions. They limp between the truth of Father, the one simple truth. Deny yourself, deny what makes you feel good, abstain from all forms of paganism, turn from your pride, turn from your arrogance, and follow the one honest truth of Yah Elohim. And that alone, they're torn between that and between having a foot in the world of comfort and what they like to hear. listening only to preachers and influencers and teachers and prophets say things that they find titillating, things that amuses them, things that, cool little symbolic stories of Scripture. Have you noticed how this part in Scripture symbolically connects with this part of Scripture? They want to hear these things, or they want to hear prophecies of some prophet who says, oh, this will happen in the government. And of course, Americans will, oh, yeah, I want to see the government, this happen or that happen. They'll listen to anything they want to hear, but they don't want to hear the hard truths. And that is limping between two opinions. No different than the people of Israel. And what's funny is, looking at someone like me, I teach hard truth. I teach things nobody wants to hear. I teach self-denial. Letting go of your pride, letting go of your arrogance and things you think you know, and committing yourself fully to changing and taking out anything in your life that Father demands of you to show him proper reverence. And you know what's funny? All the years I've done this, I have some people who follow and watch, but I've never had a huge following of people. You know why I don't have a huge following of people? Because I don't say the things that people want to hear that makes them feel good, that titillates them. I say the things that offends and upsets people, that makes them look in the mirror instead of looking at everybody else and pointing the finger. I say the things that make people want to look in the mirror, have to look in the mirror, and point the finger right back at themselves. At placing Timothy and Timotheus, they will heap up for themselves teachers, itching ears, but they will not want to hear the truth. I have very few people that want to hear what I have to say. But every other Christian I know, they literally will heap up for themselves all these other teachers, people that they don't teach abstaining from paganism. They don't teach examining everything in your life, even traditions, and getting anything out of your life that's not good for the sake of Father. They don't teach that stuff. They teach self-gratifying doctrine, things that are cool. They teach within the bounds what's considered accepted Christian theology. That's it. The Christian world today limps between two opinions. And it's no wonder why it's so divided, so weak, so powerless, so leaderless. It is no wonder at all why everything today in the Christian world is such a joke. And it has led to more and more fractures, more and more schisms, whether it's for, just differences in doctrine, differences of belief of, this organized denomination is going to break off into, different groups because of this particular belief or that particular belief. Not only has it led to that, but it's also led to such a vast swath of different beliefs on everything that comes right down to the heart of what people believe in as the cornerstone of their faith. The believers that make up the so-called Christian religion today do exactly what Paul said don't do. And so many of those people ironically love Paul, but they don't listen to that piece of advice he gave. And they've heaped up for themselves teachers regardless. Anytime that you go online and you watch minister after minister, anytime that you go and you watch TV evangelist after TV evangelist, if you're doing that, you are in the wrong. You are doing exactly what it was that you are expressly warned in the scripture you read not to do, and you fall and prey to it. You're limping between two opinions. You're no different than the idolatrous Israelites, as recorded in the scriptural narrative with Elijah. You're limping between two opinions. And as long as you do that, you'll never have peace. You'll never have true power in your faith. And you're never truly going to know Father. That's just a hard fact.